Hello everybody and welcome. This is Roland Hartmann from Graphic in Motion, and in this tutorial I will show you how to customize my digital particle slideshow After Effects template. Before we get started with the customization in After Effects, I want to point out two things. First of all, this template requires Trapcode Form to work properly. So if you do not have the Trapcode Form plugin, then this template won't work. Second, before you open up After Effects, I recommend you to check the download folder of the digital particle slideshow, and inside this folder you will find a folder called links. Inside this links folder there's a link to a font. I recommend that you download this font, which is a demo version of the Rotor font, and this is the font that I used in this template. If you also want to use the same music that I used in the preview video, then you can follow the second link here, which will lead you to Audio Jungle, to the Technology music track by Deeper Sound. You can purchase this audio track and use it for your slideshow. Now let's get started with the customization in After Effects. And let's open up the project. Before I get started with the customization, let me explain you the structure of this tutorial. The first part of the tutorial will cover a standard customization. That means I will show you how you can add your footage to the slideshow, how you can edit titles, how you can change these callouts here, and how you can change the look of your slideshow. In the second part of the tutorial, I will show you how you can take advantage of the modular structure of this template. You see that this template has a modular structure. That means that you can shift scenes, you can change the duration of these scenes, and you can also add additional scenes. If we take a look at the standard structure, you see that we have two intro scenes with two title placeholders. You could also add your logo if you want to these placeholders. And then we have 8 different scenes where you can import your footage. And in the end, again, we have one scene with an additional title. But because of the modular structure, it's easy to change the amount of scenes. You can add scenes, or you can also delete scenes from your slideshow. So let's get started by customizing one of the scenes. To customize your scenes, simply select the scene you want to customize and double-click on the layer. This will open up the scene composition. Now we can add some footage to our scene number 1. First of all, I will import some footage by selecting File, and then I go to Import and Import File. Now I move to my folder with my stock footage, and for this example I will use this Target Businessman JPEG here. You could now of course create a new folder for your footage by clicking on the Create a New Folder button. Just to keep the project organized, I will drag my footage into this folder. Now you can select this layer here that's called footage number 1, and you see that the marker also says double click to add footage here. So simply double click this layer to open it up, and now we are in the footage 1 composition. You see that it contains 2 placeholder layers. We can turn them off. You can also simply select them and delete them because we don't need them anymore. Now I drag my Target Businessman JPEG into my footage 1 composition. And you see that this picture is a little bit too big, so I press S on my keyboard and scale it down so that the whole picture is visible, because I want the whole businessman to be visible, something like this. And now I go back to scene number 1, so let's take a look, and you see now my footage appears here and is formed by the particles. The next step that we want to do is to adjust the mask of our footage. Therefore you select this layer right here, which is called Mask Setup Footage 1, and double click to open up this composition. And you see inside this composition there is a simple white layer with a mask on it. This mask determines which parts of our footage are visible and which parts of our footage get distorted. If we take a look at our scene again, and if we put our time marker here to around 7-8 seconds, then you see here the side areas, the particles get distorted. So if we take a look at the mask, then you see that everything that is totally white will not get distorted, and the area which fades from white to black, particles that are visible in this area, will get influenced by this fractal distortion. So you can change the look with a mask. If you want to change your mask, you can enter the mask setup composition, and then you can either work with the mask that is already applied to this layer, or you can create your own one. First of all, let's enable the footage 1 composition or layer down here by clicking on this eye switch, and let's disable the edit mask composition just for a moment, just that we can see what we are doing. Now I could double click on my mask and I could start scaling it. And I could press MM on the keyboard to change some settings, for example, decrease the mask feather a little bit to maybe 120. And now let's take a look at our scene, how this changes our particle behavior. And now you see everything is gone. So why is that? This is a very common mistake. I made this 100 times while creating this template. This is when I forget to turn on the edit mask layer again. So you have to turn this on again. Otherwise, After Effects has no mask and nothing will be displayed. So don't forget to turn the mask on again. You could turn off the footage layer, but you don't have to. So let's go back to the scene, and now you see it gets visible again. And you see that the amount of distorting particles is now a little bit smaller. So to make this more clear, let's go back to the mask setup and let's increase this quite a bit, let's say to 500. And now I go to my scene. Now you see I have a lot of distortion and a lot of distorted particles. And if I go back now to my mask setup comp and set it to 50, a very small fade here, then you see that I have nearly no particles, a little bit. So I would recommend that you use a value between 150 and 250, depending on how many particles you want to fly around. I will take a value of 220, and I also want to change the mask. But of course, you can also use your own mask. So let's do that. Let's enable our footage layer, and let's disable our edit mask layer for a moment, and select this layer. Now I will delete the mask that is already on there, and I go to my pen tool, and I create my own mask. So let's really quickly draw a very rough mask around my businessman here. You don't have to be precise. Okay, perfect. Now I go to MM, press M twice on the keyboard to reveal my mask properties. And again, I set my mask feather to about 250. Now let's select this mask again, and maybe I want to correct it a bit. So right here, give it a little bit more room here. Okay, perfect. Now I will enable this layer again, disable my footage layer, and go back to my scene. And now you see that I have a little bit of a nicer border and a cutout of my character, of my footage here. So you see that you can apply masks to your footage really easily and fast. If your footage doesn't look right, let me increase the resolution here and let's take a look what is going on here. You see now all the particles. If your footage doesn't look right, you can change the look of this by selecting the particles footage layer, this blue layer here, and then go to the Effect Controls panel. You see that this is the layer where Trapcode Form is applied, and we also have two additional effects, one levels effect and one glow effect. If your footage is very bright, then maybe the glow effect is a little bit too hard or too extreme. So you can turn up the glow threshold. I will show you what this does. In our case here, if I turn up the glow threshold, then you see the glow will get less and less. So you can adjust the glow threshold matching your needs. And if I decrease it, then everything gets really glowy and really bright, which doesn't look too good. So I will increase this, in this case, to about, let's say, 85%, or even a little bit lower, that we have a little bit more glow going on, maybe like 60. Another option that you have to change the brightness of your footage is this levels channel. You see, if you drag this arrow here, the right one here, to the right, then it gets darker. I will make a little bit more room that you can see what I'm doing. And if I drag it to the left, then my footage gets brighter and brighter. So this is another control how you can change the look of your footage. Okay, so now I'm satisfied with the look of my footage. Let's take a look how it builds up. Looks really cool. We have these glowing particles. We have a nice 3D depth here. So everything works perfect. Now what I can do is I can change the title. To change the title, you simply enter the main title composition and double click the layer, and now we are in the main title composition. Here you see we have two text layers which you can edit by simply double clicking. Now you can enter your title. You can of course also change the font. You can change the tracking here or the size of the font. Then you have this subtitle here. You can enter some additional information. You can also turn this off if you do not want to use it. And we also have this title box here, and you can also change the size of this title box by simply selecting the title box layer and then pressing S for scale. And then you can either scale it on the X-axis or you can also scale it on the Y-axis. If you want, you can of course also reposition these titles. You simply select your main title and your box, and then you can move them around wherever you want and create your individual layouts. To change the position of the main title in the scene, you simply can select the layer and then drag one of these axis handles here. This way you can position your main title. Okay, now let's customize these callouts here. You see that we have two callouts in each scene. So I will zoom in here a little bit, that you see these a little bit better. If you want to edit the title on the callout, you simply select the text layer that's called callout 01 title or callout 02 title and double click, and now you can enter your title. If you want to change the position of the callout, then please select the callout itself, not the text layer, but this shape layer here. I will go back to my selection tool for now. And before you start moving your callout, I recommend that you change your axis mode from local axis mode to world axis mode. And I will explain you why I recommend this. So let's take a look here and let's open up two views, and let's make sure that this view is set to top here. Now I select my callout number 1. If I want to change the position now, you see that now my axis mode is set to local axis mode. Let's say I want to set it on the x-axis, I want to set it more to the left. Then you see what's happening. Our callout is moving away from my particles. And if now the camera movement is happening, then it will float around and it will be too far away from our footage. It will get blurry and stuff. So this is not what I would recommend to do. So let's undo this. The right way to position your callouts is to select the callout layer and then change to the world axis mode. If you change to the world axis mode, you see now the x-axis is lined up with the front of our particles here, and now you can simply position it wherever you want without losing the distance to our particles. So let's reposition this callout maybe here. Okay, I will change back to one view here. And you can of course also change the shape of this callout. To change the shape of the callout, you simply select the shape layer, the callout 1 layer or callout 2, and then you go to the pen tool again. And if you move the pen tool over these points here, we have one point here, one point right here, and one point here, then you can change these. So let's say I want this callout to be a little bit flatter, so not such a big angle, and a little bit bigger, like so. So I simply drag these points to the new position. And now I can take my title. And now please make sure if you change the position of the title that you are in local axis mode again. So really change every position with local axis mode, only the position of the callout with world axis mode. So let's change back to local axis mode. And now I can line up my title here with my callout. And in this case, I made a bad job by adjusting this line here. So I will go back to my pen tool, zoom in a bit and correct this quickly. Therefore, I will turn off my OpenGL adaptive resolution for now. that I see what I'm doing here. And you see now I created a new callout. And the build-up animation will still work. If you want to add another callout, you can of course also duplicate one of these callouts. Therefore, you simply select both of the layers, the callout layer and the text layer, and press Ctrl D on your keyboard. Now you can drag them underneath the first callout. And now you can go to the selection tool, again choose World Axis mode, and now you can reposition the second callout. Of course, if you do not want any callouts, then simply select all these callout layers and turn them off. So I will delete this third callout because I don't need it. So the last step of our scene customization is to change the look. You see that we have a look setup layer here, and you will find one of these in every scene, which you can use to change the look of your scene. So let's zoom in a bit and let's take a look at our title here. The first control that you have is the title box color. With this color, let's take this color picker, you can change the color of this title box here. You see that beneath our title we have these dots, and these dots are also created referring to the footage you put in. So you always have a few nice colors that will match the colors in your footage. So you can sample quickly these dot colors and choose the right box color. You can of course also sample colors directly from your footage. In my case, I will use this gray here. Okay, then you can change the color of the callout dots. So I will move up here a little bit. You see these little now purple colored dots here, and I will change them to this kind of bright red here. And of course I can also change the line color of my callouts, and therefore I simply select, I don't know, maybe some bluish color. I will undo this for now because I think white is better. If you want to change the text color, simply select the text layer, and then you can colorize this through the character panel here. So let's select our look setup layer again, and let's take a look at the next control, which says BG interface control. That means background interface color. In the background here, you can't see it really good now, but if I move forward, you see these codes and all these motion graphic stuff going on in the background. You can also change the color of this. So for example, you could also change this to red. And now you see in the background here, everything is now red. The next three controls deal with the look of our footage. You see that we can change the amount of particles that Trapcode Form applies to our footage on the x-axis, on the y-axis, and we also can change the particle size. So let's reduce this amount quite a bit, maybe to 120, and here to, let's say, about 60. So we get more or less regular grid here. And now I could increase the size here quite a bit, maybe to 10. And you see now I have a completely different look, but also very cool. So a little bit abstract, but really cool. And if we take a look now, everything is still working. We have a nice build-up. So in this way, you can really change the look of your slideshow really easily. And the cool thing is you can set this up for each scene individually. So if we go back to our render composition, you see that these changes that I made to scene number 1 had no effect on scene number 2 or any of the other scenes. So you can really play around and create really creative slideshows here. Okay, so this was basically the customization of a scene. Every scene works exactly the same. And also these intro scenes, let's take a quick look at these. If we open up the intro scene number 1, for example, by double clicking, you see that we also have a look setup here. You can also change all the colors, background box. We also have a main title composition to enter and to change the title here. Let's go back to our intro scene number 1. And you also have a look setup to change the particles of these particles right here. And by the way, these intro compositions are also controlled by footage. So you can also add your footage to change the color of these particles. So if you go to the intro footage 01, let's disable these two placeholders. Let's go to our project file and drag in our target businessman again and leave him like this now. If I go back now to my intro scene 1, you see that the particles take over the color of my footage. So you can put in whatever footage you want to colorize your intro scene particles. The next step in the standard customization process would be to change the color grading. You see that on top here we have a color grading layer. If you select this and go to the Effect Controls panel, you see that we have a curves effect on it, and we have a background color 1 and background color 2 color controls on it. With the curves effect, I just made a simple color grading. If you deactivate the effect, you see what it does. It just gives it a little bit more contrast and a little bit of a bluish tint. So if I activate it, you see that everything gets a little bit cooler. You can of course now change this look. Maybe you want to increase this a little bit more, or maybe you want to decrease the amount of blue, then you get this greenish color, and you know how to colorize something with a simple curves adjustment color grading. I will undo this for now. With the background color controls, you can of course change the color of this background here. You see that the background is very dark and we have 3 areas that are a little bit colored. So the first color changes the color of these lighter parts here. If I change this, for example, to red, you see that they are now slightly red. You cannot nearly see it because, of course, this color control is putting them to blue again, but now you can see it if I turn this off. And you can, of course, also change the main background color, but I would not recommend to do much here. This should stay really dark, because if you go too bright, then you lose all the contrast and you see that it will not look so cool anymore. So I will reset the 2 colors for now. And now we'll show you how you can add your audio. If you take a look at the render composition, you see that we have 2 different audio compositions right here. The first one is called Audio Technology and the second one is called Audio Other. That means that if you want to use the same audio track that I used in the preview video, and which is also linked in the project folder that I showed you before, then you can use this Audio Technology composition because this is trimmed. As you see, I made a little edit that this audio track fits the length of our standard slideshow. To import your audio, you simply go to File and again go to Import File and then navigate to the folder with your audio. Now with the Technology MP3, you open up the Audio Technology composition and drag in the MP3 and make sure that the layer starts on frame 0. Now you can go back to the render composition and the audio will line up nicely with the animation. And now you're good to render out your slideshow. If you want to use another audio, or if you want to change the timing of the slideshow and use your own audio, then simply import your audio track into the Audio Other composition. Okay, so this was the basic customization of this template. You see that it's very versatile. You can do really a lot of it and create really cool slideshows. And it gets even cooler because you can also change the duration and change the amount of scenes. If we take a look at our structure, you see that this is modular. So every scene is a single composition and you can shift them around. Now I want to show you how you can change the duration of one of these scenes. Let's take a closer look at scene number 1. Scene number 1 starts at 10 seconds and scene number 2 starts at 20 seconds. So the scene duration, including the transitions, is exactly 10 seconds now. Let's say I want to change the scene duration from 10 seconds to 5 seconds. First of all, what you want to do is you want to enter the scene composition. So let's double click on our scene layer to open it up. Now what we want to do, we want to set our time marker to the new duration. I want it to be 5 seconds, including the transitions. So I set my time marker to 5 seconds. Now you can press this little button here that's called the Hide All Layers switch. And now you see that a bunch of layers were hidden. And this is only because a standard customization doesn't need these layers and it's easier to keep an overview over the composition. But if you want to change the duration, then you need these other layers. So let's open these up. The important layers that we have here are the cam control and the camera layer. So these 2 top layers here. Select both of them by selecting the first one, hold down Control and selecting the second one. And now press U on your keyboard. This will reveal all the animation keyframes that are on these layers. If I want to change the duration now, I simply select all these keyframes by clicking with the left mouse button and drag. I drag a rectangle around all keyframes, then I select them, drag them over, hold down Shift, and they will snap in place on my time marker. Now you see that this animation got a little bit faster, of course. This slight rotation here. And then we have a nice transition. Okay, let's move our cursor back to 5 seconds. And now we have to enter our fractal map footage 1 composition, which you find down here. This one, fractal map footage 1 composition, and double click to open it up. On the first layer here, the mask setup footage, press U to reveal the keyframes. And you see we have another keyframe that we have to shift. So select these keyframes, hold down Shift, and line them up at the 5 seconds mark. Now let's go back to scene 1 and let's take a look. And now you see that our particles get distorted and move away. Now let's go back to our render composition. Our time marker is still exactly at the point in time where our animation is starting, our transition animation. So what I can do now is I select all the scenes that are left in my slideshow. So select scene number 2, hold down Shift and select it until the end scene, and then I hold down Control and also select my fade to black scene. I will not select the color grading because this can stay on. So now I will zoom out a bit. You see all my layers are now selected. Now I take scene 2, drag it over, hold down Shift, and it will snap in place on my time marker. One more thing, select scene number 1 and press U on your keyboard to reveal these opacity animation keyframes. Select both of these keyframes, select the first one, hold down Shift, and snap it in place also at the 5 seconds marker. And now you can move to the next keyframe by pressing K on your keyboard and bring this end here in. You don't have to do that, but you can do it, just to keep it organized. And now you see we have a nice working transition between scene number 1 and scene number 2, and the timing of the rest of the slideshow is still working. So this is how you change the duration of one of the scenes. And now I will show you how you can add additional scenes to the slideshow. If we take a look at our project window, you see that there is a folder called Scenes. If we open up this folder, you will see that there are all the scenes that are right now in the slideshow are visible in this folder. And you also see that there is a folder called Additional Scenes. If you open up these additional scenes, these scenes are not used in the slideshow, and you can use them to extend the duration of your slideshow. So let's say you want to add another scene right after our scene number 8 here. The easiest way to do it is to select scene number 8 and duplicate it. Now I will take one of my additional scenes, let's say additional scene number 1, drag it over my created duplicate, hold down Alt and release the mouse button. And After Effects will replace the duplicate of scene number 8 with our additional scene number 1. And now we only have to line this up. So let's select scene number 8 and press U on the keyboard. And you see here we have this fade out again. And now we can use these keyframes to determine where the in point of our new scene should be. So now I select my new scene and all the scenes behind it, so my end scene in this case, and I will also take the fade to black with me. And I drag it over and line it up exactly with my keyframe. It's easier if you place your marker directly at the keyframe and then by holding down Shift, snapping this new scene in place. And you see now I have a nice transition from scene number 8 to my newly created additional footage scene. Okay, this is it with this tutorial. Thank you very much for your patience. I know it's a little bit of a long tutorial for a customization tutorial, but you see this slideshow is very versatile and you have many possibilities to create amazingly looking slideshows. I hope that you like the template, that you enjoy working with it. If you have any problems, feel free to contact me anytime through my Video Hive profile or through my website, which is www.graphicandmotion.com. Thank you very much for watching. If you already purchased this slideshow, then thanks a lot for your purchase, and I really hope to see you soon. Goodbye.